Well, we wanted to take some time to talk about that first tranche of national projects announced last week by the Prime Minister. And when the final five were unveiled, none of those projects were in the Northwest Territories. Still, the Territories Premier sounded a positive note. And to talk about that, we're now joined by RJ Simpson, the Premier of the Northwest Territories. Premier, welcome to the studio.
Great to be here.
Okay, let's pick up on this point because these projects were announced a week ago today. You and I have been talking for months now about the projects that you wanted to put forward for your territory. None of them made the final list. So why that positive note?
Well, it's a positive note because we have seen so much interest in the North, so much interest in the Arctic, not just from the rest of the world, which has been happening for a number of years now, but from our own government. And so we have great signals from the Prime Minister and from other ministers and at the staff level about investments that are coming to the territory in terms of national defense and some of these projects that we're bringing forward. And the Arctic Economic and Security Corridor was mentioned in the second tranche of projects, and that is the one that we're advancing as well. So I think I understand this first tranche, what they wanted to do. They wanted to get some things that are close to being completed. They wanted to get them done, get them over the finish line, and then look at projects that are going to take a little longer. And our projects, they're not shovel-ready tomorrow, and so we don't necessarily need them on the list today. But there's very good signals that they're getting on the list.
Okay, good signals getting on the list. And you talk about things like the Mackenzie Valley Highway, the Tulston Hydro Project, the expansion of that. Again, as you say, the Economic and Security Corridor. Is there a timeline in your mind? Do those need to get going sooner rather than later?
Well, they're all in different stages. So the Mackenzie Valley Highway, which would connect Inuvik, so the Arctic essentially, and the forward operating location of the Canadian Armed Forces up there with the rest of Canada. That one is in environmental assessment right now, and we could have shovels in the ground in 27-28 fiscal year. So that one's moving ahead. Regardless of if we're on a list or not, we are doing that project. Canada has been supportive. We need some commitments of money, but I'm feeling good about that one. So that one is moving forward, and I'm confident about that one. The other projects are in different phases, and I think that the Arctic, or the Economic and Security Corridor, that would begin construction after we're done the Mackenzie Valley Highway. And so that's still a few years off, and there's more work to be done. We've actually gone back to the drawing board in a lot of ways because previous work didn't include the Indigenous peoples whose land that corridor is going to be on. So we've gone back and we've brought them in as proponents. We want them to be the ones advancing this so that they can realize the economic benefits of projects on their land. And similarly, Tulston Hydro work is still being done to advance it. So it's not necessary they're on the list today, but going forward, we'll definitely need a lot of federal support on them, and I'm confident we're going to get it.
As we talk about these national projects, and you know this, right now there is this debate, this concern, because on the one hand, this government says it's going to be more fiscally responsible. On another, they're going to invest. And there have been, and I don't know how strong a voice it is, but there have been voices of people who wonder about these investments in the territories. Your territory, for example, I think has less than 1% of the national population. And some might argue that money is better invested in the South, where there are more people right now feeling economic hardship. What do you say to that type of argument?
Well, that's been the philosophy for Canada's history, essentially. And that's why we don't have the development in the Arctic. That's why we don't have a larger population. And that's why it's not more of an economic engine for the country like it could be. The Southern Canada has benefited from investments when it had a low population. The railroad, east to west, the highway system, the electrical grid that's interconnected across Canada, those were investments that were forward-looking. We need the same type of forward-looking investments in Canada. We have a huge country, and if you look at a map, the highway system, the infrastructure, it's blank in the northern part of the country. That's different from every other circumpolar nation who's made investments in the Arctic. And so by making those investments, we're going to be reaping benefits for Canada because already there's more jobs than people in the Northwest Territories. And so as we build this infrastructure, we get more mines under development and operational. Those are jobs for people from across Canada. Those are revenues for Canadian companies, and that's revenues for the Government of Canada as well, who has a stake in our resource regime.
And as you said earlier, that there is this interest, and I've been to a number of security forums where there have been security experts wondering, what investment is Canada making, because you have tracked, you and I talked about this before, a number of foreign players now in the Arctic.
Well, and that's the thing. If Canada's not interested, a lot of other countries are interested, and so if Canada's not going to make investments, we got to find those investments somewhere. And I'd prefer them to be Canadian investments, Canadian companies, and the government of Canada.
Okay. Premier RJ Simpson, thank you for this. I always appreciate the time.
Thank you.